During my recent visit to the flourishing hub of microschools and education entrepreneurship in South Florida, my first visit was to Compass Outreach and Education Center, a microschool run by our guest today, Laurel Suarez. And I didn't know it at the time, but Laurel was actually the ideal founder for me to meet with first, because she was one of the first microschool founders in the greater Fort Lauderdale area, launching her microschool back in 2019. She has now become a mentor and source of support and encouragement for many of the other microschool founders who have created or expanded their programs over the past few years. Laurel Suarez, welcome to the LiberatED podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I really appreciate the invite.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you here. I'm just so inspired by your work and your beautiful microschool. That's just such a warm and welcoming educational space for children. You can tell that it's so personalized and customized for each child's individual needs. And you have this beautiful outdoor space as well. And I know outside time and time in nature is a real priority. So we'll get into kind of your evolution to creating Compass as our conversation moves forward. But I want to start with your background. You were born and raised in the U.S. Virgin Islands and became a teacher there. And then you moved to Florida and worked as an executive administrator for a charter school management company. But what made you decide to go into education in the first place?
Well, to be very honest, my mother and all of her sisters, and even some of my dad's brothers, they're all educators, whether, school principals or administrators, that type of thing. So I was always in someone's classroom or in my own imaginary classroom. So it was just, I loved computers as well, especially on the island. However, we always they were always looking for teachers, and education was just really an honored and respected career there. So it was just like a natural thing for me to do.
And then when you came to Florida, you started working with this charter school management company. Tell us about how that came to be.
Literally, I was just looking around for different positions that would allow me to utilize all of my skills, not just being in the classroom or not just education, but I also loved the entrepreneurship side. And I found that the charter school sector gave me the opportunity to dabble into a little bit of everything. I was able to touch the business side, the human resources side, and still, be able to handcraft special programs when it came to education. So I loved it.
So you spent several years working with the charter school management company, and especially working in alternative high schools. So you were often on the ground in these charter schools. And I know when we had our conversation at Compass recently, you talked about that experience of working in these alternative high schools as really kind of defining for you and laying the groundwork for ultimately what would become a much more kind of smaller, personalized setting. And of course, for listeners who don't know, alternative high schools, what we're talking about there are not what we would consider kind of the larger view of alternative education and what we're talking about today, but these would be public high schools for kids who aren't able to be in a regular high school, often due to behavioral or emotional challenges. And you explained that this was really a meaningful, insightful experience for you, and also a place where you met some of your colleagues who you ultimately brought over into Compass. But to tell us about what it was about that alternative high school environment that was eye-opening for you.
Yes, many of the students there, take that back. All of the students there had a story, right? And when you get to know them and talk to their families, especially, you find out, or I realized that many of them lost their way, either because of issues, things that were happening at home that were impacting them, or they may have just not been able to keep up with the traditional, classes, that type of thing, and they were being left behind and feeling discouraged. Or some of the, and because of that, I shouldn't even say but because of that, a lot of them started acting out in the classroom and having different behavior issues. But when you really got down into it, they all really wanted to succeed, but for whatever reason, different factors within the traditional school setting was holding them back. So it was just, students at that point envisioned school or saw school as more of a chore versus a love of learning experience. And I really wanted to be able to change that for them. So being in that setting, it was like, what could we have done differently? Could we have tapped into, while this child was earlier, to maybe, help them to redirect, their educational career. And then just having discussions with the teachers there, where in many instances, we felt a little stifled because we were always kind of teaching to the test. And even though, yes, it's, a charter school and you do have some flexibility, at the end of the day, you still have to meet the same goals and, as the traditional school settings, school would have to. So you didn't have that freedom of being spontaneous in your classroom because you were always working towards something. You didn't have the time to really differentiate and customize things for students. It was very much a cookie cutter experience for those students.
Yeah. So really wanting to inject that love of learning and help young people be passionate about the subjects that they were exploring and be more curious about the world around them and create that sort of joyful learning environment seemed like it was a real priority for you. And so you started your path to entrepreneurship back in 2014, where you started running tutoring programs for local homeschoolers. How did you make the leap then from working in the charter school sector to then the early stages of education entrepreneurship a few years before launching your microschool?
A lot of it stemmed from volunteering and different activities that I had done while working with the charter school company. So I was able to spin off, and a lot of people already recognized my name or knew me, being a part of the education community, and were open to allowing me to run, tutoring programs and whatnot. So as I started to really dive into that, I did a lot of networking with like the local schools and churches, that type of thing, spreading the word about, what I was trying to do, the students I was looking to serve. In many instances, folks, were like, oh, well, we can't afford this or we can't do that. And when we talked to them and we're like, no, this is something, it's on a smaller scale, and we're trying to make it that we're, customizing educational opportunities for families. And that's how, word of mouth really helped us a lot. Once folks started coming in and seeing, what we were doing with our students on such a small scale, they were like, this is something that we really like and appreciate.
Yeah. And you also are kind of a born entrepreneur, right? Like you said that this is something going off on your own and doing your own work was really something you've always been interested about and passionate about. When we visited, you gave me one of your beautiful homemade candles that you created. You've also written children's books. You've always sort of had this sort of entrepreneurial spirit, and you had explained that you would always wanted to go off on your own, and ultimately, of course, did, not only with the tutoring program, but even more formally with the launch of the Microschool in 2019. So tell us what was going on that ultimately made you really take the leap into education entrepreneurship then.
Many parents that were coming in and that we were just interacting with expressed that they loved the homeschooling side of things. However, there were some challenges for them. Some parents stated, I'm really good at helping my child with language arts, but when it comes to mathematics, like I struggle, or I don't feel like I'm giving them the full scope. Or some of them mentioned, I'm doing the homeschooling, but I know my child needs a little bit more social interaction. So I started taking the feedback of parents and, hey, why did you even start homeschooling? And I started to think to myself, as a mom, I would love to have X, Y, and Z in one place. It would have been really nice when my kids were growing up. And with that, and, just talking to them about my ideas, and they're like, oh yeah, if you ever did something, let us know. If you did, a few more hours, we would definitely sign up. And once I had enough, words of affirmations from families that we were interacting with, I was like, okay, we're gonna, jump in and go full throttle and see how this would work out for us.
And so then it was just so easy for you to find the perfect building, right?
I wish.
That was a bit of a challenge.
I wish.
Tell us about that.
Huge challenge, just because we have a lot of places here or buildings that are vacant. However, they don't have the appropriate zoning, right? So, and if they did have the appropriate zoning, they didn't have any green space. And that was another big thing that was important for me. I wanted kids to be able to go outside, dig in the dirt and really explore, etc. So I looked at maybe 30 something properties, and there was a property that was first on the list that I did not even look at because the thumbnail, the picture was so small. And I said to myself, well, if the realtor didn't even take the time to really do a good picture, this must be, nothing. And overlooked it. I went to look at other properties. They didn't have the proper zoning, or, they didn't help. It wouldn't allow me to meet, like, the restroom requirements and all these different things that came along with it. And I was really depressed. And I was talking to my mom one day, and I was like, Mom, I said, you know what? I feel like I am stuck. I'm going to give up. And she said, well, what about that one you had on the paper that you said that, it was nothing worth looking at? She was like, let's go for a drive. Take me for a drive and let's just swing by. And we pulled up, and it was like, I heard, oh, in the background. There was like, wait a minute, this could be it. It was an abandoned church that literally, there were squatters. I think there was like 7 families living in there at the time. Plumbing not working. I mean, it was just a real mess, but it had a beautiful yard. And that's all I needed. I was sold. And we, started the process, working with the city to make sure that it would, be a fit. And, our business model is something that we could, have in that space. And luckily, because we're right next to a high school, we were zoned as a community facility, which is what you would need to just be able to kind of roll on in and have a school there. So it was, after lots of searching, and that's why I tell folks, when you think something may not work, still go ahead and test it out and check it, because you never know. Because that's literally what happened with me and finding our comfort space.
Oh, well, and thanks to all of your hard work and renovations, Compass is absolutely beautiful. You now have 48 students and 8 teachers, plus some additional supplemental instructors who come in here and there to do, special projects with the students. It's a multi-age environment with a very kind of personalized, mastery-based curriculum where kids are able to go at their own pace and get that sort of individual attention that they need. Tell us a little bit more about the kind of education you're offering at Compass and how it's different from conventional models.
So first of all, everything that we do is still very much aligned to the traditional school standards, so to speak, right? However, I think it's our methodology, just the way that we do things, that's a little bit different. So we still have our language arts and mathematics, which is like a big deal for me, because I feel like if you can read and do math, you can do anything. And so that's a big focus of what we do. And then we also have our science and social studies. And in many instances, we infuse those lessons into our project-based learning. So it is a blended learning environment where we utilize, direct instruction and the technology. And then we also utilize project-based learning, which is beautiful, especially for those children that are a little bit shy, but they're a master when it comes to their using their hands and are able to create and still show the mastery of a concept. Okay, so with that as well, we infuse a little bit of, well, not a little bit, a lot of nature education. So our students that are on our K1 and second through third grade track, they have a lot of classes that focus on nature education. And then our students that are on the 3rd through 6th grade track, they have nature education, but they also have a good dose of financial literacy and entrepreneurship. And, I was explaining to a parent, she was like, I don't think my child will ever, want to own or run a business. I said, well, it doesn't matter, because the same skills when it comes to oral presentation, research, the whole 9, you still can use that in other facets of life. And I just think, being able to, teach children that they can, be sustainable on their own. They can take care of themselves. They can, go to the land. They know about, planting and reaping. Like our students, it's amazing to see when it's lunchtime. Some days they bring their protein and then they go to the garden and they pick their lettuce, etc. And that's what they have for lunch. Like that's an amazing experience and something that they can take with them forever, so that's really, really cool.
Yeah. And you're really seeing the results of this much more personalized education model, this kind of microschool, small, multi-age model. The students I talk to there are, just so enthusiastic. They absolutely love Compass and feel like it's such a great learning environment for them. And you're also seeing academic gains as well. If a child might come in behind grade level, they're quickly able to catch up. And in some cases, or in many cases, go above grade level rather quickly through the assessments that you're doing. But there isn't that teach for the test experience that you found when you were working in the public charter schools. What's the secret there? How have you been so successful?
Well, first off, we don't even tell our students that they are being tested, right? And I'll tell you a funny story about that really quick. We were recently accredited, and as the reviewers were talking to students and whatnot, they asked them how they felt about testing. And our students said, "We don't test." And I'm like, oh my gosh. And the reviewers are like, really? Because, and they explained to them what they were told. And they were like, yeah, no, we don't do testing. So I literally had to log in and show them what it is that, the reviewers were referring to. And they were like, oh, yeah, we do that from time to time. We don't put any pressure on them because we really just want to see how they organically perform. So I don't even put it on the calendars really, I don't let the parents know. I mean, they know because we do testing 3 times a year. So first we do it as soon as the student comes in, so we can gauge where they are. We use the MAP assessment. And then from there, we customize the lessons and we group them based on what they need. And then we assess them again right around November, December time, because we want to look at our progress and see how we're doing. And if we need to tweak something, then that's the best time to do it. And then rolling around towards the end of the year, then we jump into our final assessment so then we can look at the full scope and see what we've done. And that also helps us for planning for the following school year, which is really nice as well. So we don't put any pressure on our students. We let them know, first of all, that mistakes happen. It's okay. And also that this is truly an environment where we're learning, they're learning. It's all about learning. So, we have students that are like, when they first come into us, they're like, oh my gosh, is there going to be a lot of testing? Or, I get sick when we do tests. And I'm like, no, we don't do, it's a little bit different and you will see. And it's been really nice because I think they're so comfortable that it allows them not to, climb up or tense up when they are actually testing and just really perform and show us what it is that they can do. So that's been really nice, and it's cool. It's really nice when you can see the results reflect what you already know as the educator is happening with the child, which is it's really nice to see.
That must be so gratifying for you and really does confirm the model and the mission. So your tuition is about $13,500 for a full-time program. You do also offer some part-time options for homeschoolers, but you've said that many of them end up wanting to come full-time. The kids are, just so happy to be there, and the parents recognize that, and then they end up coming full-time. But $13,500 is less expensive than some of the other conventional private schools in South Florida, but still quite financially out of reach for a lot of families. And your families, many of your families participate in one of the Florida scholarship programs, one of the school choice programs that enables education funding to go to the families to use toward Compass. I wonder if you can talk a bit about what you think or what you see as the intersection between school choice policies like these scholarship programs and the education entrepreneurship and microschool burst that's happening in your area. Would you exist, do you think, without these scholarship programs? Would education entrepreneurship exist? And if so, or if not, I guess, how does school choice influence that?
We would exist, but on a very smaller scale. I don't think I would have been able to scale or grow the way that I have if we didn't have the scholarship programs. And one of the things is that, yes, the scholarship does cover a portion of the tuition, and whatever is left over as a family's balance, we also discount that as well, so that we can make sure that the child is, eligible to still come to the school, and that it's not a financial issue, that's hindering them from receiving or participating in this type of educational program. But we definitely we definitely rely on the funding that comes in through the scholarships to help us to really scale our programs, especially when it comes to the curriculum. Many of the curriculum providers have their items, their products are expensive. So they haven't really modified it for a micro school, you know what I mean? So I have had to, I've looked at amazing curriculum, for example, that's like, let's say, $55 per student or $100 or $50 per student, but there's an implementation fee of $7,000. You know what I mean? Which is very hard for a micro school to afford. So because we have scholarships, we are able to, set aside that money, because, you have targeted things that you can use it for, to really help us to expand our program and bring in additional resources for our students. That's been tremendously helpful for us. And the fact that and the scholarships also really support families that are looking for a different style of education for their child, especially many homeschool families. They became homeschool families because they weren't pleased with X, Y, and Z, or not even that they weren't pleased, but maybe just an experience that they had. I've had, students that have enrolled with us that have experienced bullying and that type of thing, and they really just want a different type of setting. So they say they want to homeschool and they try to go all in, but in many instances, because they have to work, etc., it doesn't always work out the way that they envision it. So schools like ours, existing are perfect because we're able to have a partnership with those families and really support them as they, as we both help them to navigate, this child's, educational career, which is really good. So yeah. Shout out to the scholarship folks. Yes.
Yeah. And so in addition to the scholarship programs, the state school choice programs, you've also been a recipient of private grants, micro grants through the Vela Education Fund, which is a nonprofit philanthropic organization that tries to support microschool founders and other education entrepreneurs like you who are building these sort of innovative, often non-traditional learning models. How have those micro grants been helpful for you?
Very helpful. I can tell you with our Vela grant, we were able to put down a down payment for our portable classroom. So we'll be able to expand and serve more families based on that. And we're hoping to have that in place by January, February time. But the fact that we have the opportunity to use those grants, we've even received a grant from Whole Foods, which helped us to get our garden together. But because we have Vela and other organizations willing to support micro schools, we are able to serve more families, which is really amazing. I have had people that have come in and we're like, oh, we're capped for space because it is a micro school, right? But we're able to grow slowly, taking our time, because sometimes when you do too much too fast, you lose the quality. So we're able to really just take our time and add, components to our program based on the support of these grants. And what I like about it as well is that it makes us accountable, right? Because we have to do what we're saying, when we apply for these grants, we are saying that we're going to do X, Y, and Z. And now we're accountable to not just ourselves, but to the grant providers as well, to make sure that we put together, a solid program and offerings for families.
Well, I'm excited for your new portable classroom. You showed me the photos of that, and it should be coming soon and will really, I think, enable you to do even more on your space. Currently, you have a sort of small mobile classroom that's been another area for you to offer kind of individualized attention. But you've also used that space in the past to help other local education entrepreneurs to get started. And that's really where not only are you a leader in terms of creating a flourishing microschool in the Fort Lauderdale area, but you're also really a mentor in helping others to do the same. And in my recent Forbes article, where I featured you and one of your other Microschool founders, Felicia Rattray, she also kind of sublet space from you in this existing mobile classroom that you have there when she was getting going. And she was there for a year and then was able to build up and get going and benefit from a lot of your advice and mentorship. And then she moved to her own space about a couple miles down the road from you, where she's been for the past couple of years. So, what do you see as your role in helping to support kind of the broader education entrepreneurship ecosystem that's emerging where you are?
I'm hoping that folks will see us and, Compass Outreach, as an education center as a tool, a vehicle, kind of lighting the way to redefining education and providing more opportunities for families. So for me, I don't see anything that we're doing within the Microschool community to be about competition. It's about community. Which is a little bit different because, sometimes when you think about entrepreneurship, you think about, folks competing against each other and that type of thing. But in the Microschool setting, we all bring something totally different. And at the end of the day, we all want the same thing, which is to serve families and provide children with bright opportunities. And so being able to serve as an incubator or, providing mentorship, that type of thing has been a blessing for me because I feel, like that proud mom when, Ms. Rattray first opened her doors. I was like, oh my gosh. And I've had, like Colossal Academy actually, started off by us as well. And so I always feel like that mom. I'm sad when they're leaving, but I'm also really excited as well. And many of the folks that I have, been talking to and just providing information to, they are teachers at heart, and they may not have had too much of the admin experience, whereas I've had a little bit of both. So I'm able to kind of coach them along, with different scenarios as well, how to handle this or, how to go about getting certain things as well. So I really see us as just being a vehicle to really, pick up folks and be like, come on, we can do this. If you have an idea, let's go for it and, show them the way. So that's all.
Yeah, there really does seem to be a lack of competition in this sort of South Florida area of microschools and education entrepreneurs. It seems quite collaborative that you're sharing knowledge and giving advice and even referring families to other microschools. Yes. How has that been for you too?
It's been, it's funny because whenever sometimes, you're talking to a parent on the phone and you're like, oh, well, you know what, there's another school. And they always kind of pause like, really? Because they're not used to, someone saying, okay, well, I may not be able to serve you, but here's where here's where you go. And it's because once again, you have to think about it. We're here to serve children. So if a mom comes to me and she's saying, look, this is what my child needs, and, this is what I'm looking for. Yes, I could accept that child, but am I really giving them what they need if I don't offer the services? Is it the right thing to do? So I might have a parent who is looking for, let's say it's a 6th grade or a 7th grade, 8th grade student, and they're looking for more of a program where the students are doing a lot more hands-on research, that type of thing. Like some of the schools, they do surf and skate, and that's what they're looking for. Why would I accept them? Why not send them to another program that's been designed, handcrafted with love once again, based on what that, that family is looking for. So I get referrals and I refer out as well. I think we just know, hey, we're here to serve children. It's not about, who has. I remember, back in the traditional school setting, you always have to work really hard to get the enrollment so you can get the FTE and the funding, and you're trying to make sure you have more students than the other school and that type of thing. It's just not like that. It's more about, can we serve the child? Can we take care of the family? Because remember, it's not even just about serving the child academically, but it's that holistic approach. So can we give them everything that they need at this site? Sometimes yes, and sometimes no. So we have to be honest and have those conversations and then be like, okay, so if not, let me point you in the right direction, as opposed to just, sending the person off with no kind, guidance.
That's Really great. And, I know you started in 2019 and then have kind of persisted and persevered through this tumultuous couple of years of the COVID response. I wonder what your sense is now in terms of parent interest in microschools. Have you seen it change since you started in 2019? What do parents think of this model?
Yeah, parents love the model, and parents love the fact that they actually have choices. Okay, I can tell you now as a mom myself, when my children were younger, I just knew about traditional schools, and this was the way, and this is how I came up. And I think that parents are taking a lot more ownership of how they learned, and saying, hey, maybe this X, Y, and Z was not the right way. Let me see if I can do something better for my child. Let me see if I can offer them a little bit more. So with having the school's choice initiative, parents are now, seeing that, hey, maybe a 8 to 3 everyday program is not for my child. Maybe they need something a little bit more abbreviated. Maybe, my child has an interest or, in sports or something that, I can now use a micro school and balance the love, the love interest of my child, the likes of, what they want to do, in addition to provide them their academics. So I think parents are looking for that small, homey, cozy little house on the prairie field, style. I think that they are also looking for safe spaces for their children. I've noticed, initially a lot of parents would ask about, the academic program, et cetera, how we did things at the school. But now a lot of parents are starting off with, could you tell us about your safety plan? How can you keep my child safe when they're with you? So I've noticed the conversation shift. And I think, so it's not just about, COVID happening and, looking for smaller spaces, but there's also a lot of other things going on, out there as well, that are causing parents to look for something a little bit different and smaller and more customized for their children.
And so do you think this will last?
Oh,
Laurel, I mean, do you think that these microschools are here to stay?
Absolutely. I know that I don't even think I know that we're here to stay. The learning goals that we are setting out for our schools, we're meeting them. We are surpassing many of our goals, just about all of the schools. And the fact that parents have more of a voice and they are open and receptive to what we're doing. We have a lot of new parents that see things differently, and they're going to always be in support of schools like ours. The homeschool communities are very much, they all stick together, and they're always looking for the next best thing for their child. I think all parents do that, right? And people are becoming more comfortable, because I remember at first people would say, oh my goodness, well, so-and-so is homeschooling. And it was kind of like odd, but now we're like, hey, we're homeschooling, but we're also doing this other program and that other program. And we're looking, we're using a micro school. And so people are researching more. They have access to more information online. They're able to do their due diligence and check out what a micro school is. And we're always open to talk, just like how we're talking together. They can see podcasts like yours and whatnot and see how beneficial it is, for a child. And I hope that, in the future, even traditional schools, I feel like if they can break down their models a little bit more, because no one is bashing the traditional schools. What they have, they're laid out. It's perfectly fine. I pulled a lot of things from the traditional school that worked, but I think they just need to create opportunities for those schools to also be flexible and not be cookie cutter. And really, we talk about differentiated instruction, but do they really allow opportunities for teachers there to do that? Not really, so just, I think our schools could actually become a model for those who have been, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And so you are a successful, now veteran microschool founder, Laurel. I wonder what advice you have for some of my listeners who might be in the early stages of education entrepreneurship. Maybe they're a teacher like you who have that entrepreneurial itch and are thinking about doing something on their own. What advice would you share with them?
Plan, take your time. Don't feel rushed. Yes, there is a surge of micro schools, but the most important thing is to research and get all of your ducks in a row figure out who you want to serve, what's going to be your niche, right? What is going to attract parents to you. And as you're looking and building different components of your school, don't forget to maintain true to who you are and know what your mission is, and stay focused and create programs that really align to who you want to serve and what you want to see. Don't be distracted, because, a lot of times folks can, they listen to our dreams and they're like, oh my gosh, I don't think you could. Don't listen to that. Don't allow others' fears to impose upon what you believe and what you want to do. So, and ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Reach out to others, existing micro schools. See if you can, we do shadow days with our students. You can come over and take a look at our school and see what we're doing, and pull all the good things that you see and make it into your own. But don't be discouraged, and don't rush. That's the most important thing. Take your time. Don't rush. Always quality over quantity. That's the thing.
Great advice, Laurel. So if my listeners want to find and follow you and Compass Outreach, what's the best way for them to do that?
Okay, so I am on LinkedIn, Laurel Suarez, and then I am always checking our social media. So most folks reach me there, and that's our handle on Instagram and Facebook is at My Compass Outreach. And just give me a call, shoot me an email. You can Google me, you'll find my information. I'm always willing to help. I've just recently started, I used to do some small little consulting with charter schools, and I've started picking that up again and formalizing it a little bit better. So now I'm able to support micro schools as well. So just give me a call and let's see how we could possibly work together to create your vision. Yeah.
And the website is mycompassoutreach.org.
You got it.
Laurel Suarez, thank you again for being on the LiberatED podcast.
Thank you for having me. I have had so much fun. Had butterflies at first, but I feel really good now.